Hello, everyone, and welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Thank you for joining us today for Back to School Part 2. My name is Rhea Stark. I'm the Digital Engagement Manager here at TLC. And if you were not able to join us last week, that's okay. Stick around, even though this is Part 2. You don't need to have seen the first one to enjoy our content today. We've got a lot of great content to share to get you prepared for the first week of school back in your library. Last week, we did have Kim and Sam from our product team to talk about cataloging with a natural language editor. And after watching the replay once or twice, I am feeling much more confident about adding new records into a database and cataloging new materials. And if that is you too, and you want to rewatch that webinar, be sure to do so. It is available anytime on our website at tlcdelivers.com/webinars. This week, as we prepare to go back to school, we'll be looking at the areas of library.solution where our frontline school librarians probably spend the majority of their time. I'm talking, of course, about LS2 staff, the workhorse of our school solution, as well as LS2 PAC, the online catalog. And before I introduce our presenter, I'd like to remind everybody that we are live on this Wednesday afternoon, and thank you very much for spending your time with us today. As a live audience participant, you get the opportunity to ask our panelists questions. So if you think of anything throughout the presentation, please add that into the question section, and we'll get to those at the end. We'll also have a few poll questions for you here in just a moment, so stay tuned for those. And if you would like to share this webinar with your colleagues or rewatch it later, it is being recorded and you can catch the replay starting tomorrow. Again, at our website is tlcdelivers.com/webinars. And last thing, before you log out today, be sure to download the handouts that are available for additional information about TLC and the solutions we deliver. All right, with the housekeeping out of the way, I'd like to welcome our presenter is Phillip Green. He's one of our sales engineers at TLC and a frequent flyer here on Webinar Wednesday. Phillip, thanks so much for joining us for Back to School.
Hi, thanks, Rhea.
Yeah, now before we kick it off, we do have a couple polls to find out who our audience is here today. So in just a moment, you'll see the first poll on your screen, which is how familiar are you with using LS2 staff or LS2 PAC? So maybe you're brand new, just started at a district that's using it, or maybe you're already familiar but could use a bit of a refresher. It was a long summer. Maybe you're very comfortable with the software, or maybe you're an expert and you're usually the one training your team. So wherever you fit on that scale, please go ahead and answer that for us. And while that's open, I'm very much looking forward to seeing this as well. I can always use a refresher on our software. It's nice to see it in action. All right, those answers are coming in. It looks like it's so far about a split with the first two. So we've got some new faces. It's good to see. All right, about 50% are somewhat familiar but could use a refresher. About a third, this is all new. Well, welcome. We'll give you some great information today. And a split between very comfortable and our experts out there. It's good to see it. All right, our second poll will show up in just a moment. And this is whether or not your school integrates your library.solution software with your student information system. This is current integration that is available. So we just are curious if you already have it set up, if you don't have it set up, or maybe you didn't even know that was an option, in which case hit that third button and we'd be happy to send you more information on how to do that. But there's a lot of great ways to be able to automate the software with the SIS in order to do weekly or nightly backups or integration of that sort. So always a good option if you choose to do so. I'm seeing a few, it's going back and forth between 50-50 and about 60-40. So it's an even split. All right, final results are in and it's about a third for yes, we do, not at this time, or I'm not sure. So it does sound like at least folks did know it was an option. That's great to hear. All right, that's the last of our polls. Phillip, I'm going to hand it over to you and I'll pop back in at the end for question and answer.
All right, thanks again, everybody. As mentioned, my name is Phillip Green. I've been with TLC for over 15 years, and I've actually spent a lot of time working with school districts throughout the country. I'm sitting here today because my elementary school librarian, Mrs. Schenk, was awesome and got me interested in reading and learning at a young age, and it stuck. So Hopefully there's some folks out there I've talked to in the past. If I haven't met you before, good afternoon again and welcome. And on the screen right now, I have a little information about what I plan to cover for you today. I thought it was clever to call this, Are We Ready to Go Back LS2 School? So this is what we're going to be looking at with LS2 staff and PAC today. So the first thing I'm going to mention is customizing the launch page. If you're not aware of how that works, I'm going to point that out and let you know what you can do. We're going to talk about check-in and check-out tips. And because we do have some new folks here, I'm going to go over a couple of the basics for the new folks. And, it would be a nice little refresher for those that have used the system before. And I'm also going to mention a couple new features as well, including the newest feature, which will be the integration of serials. I'll just mention that verbally. Version 5.7, if your schools work with any type of serialized information, such as magazines, periodicals, etc., you will have serial control available just in a few weeks within LS2 staff and cataloging, as well as an updated display for serial and periodical information in the PAC. We're going to take a look at a couple extra pieces of information that are available in the student account. We're going to look at list and actions. We're going to talk about using a staff PAC. We're going to talk about the responsible party feature for homeroom teachers. We're going to point that out. RSS feeds, are you using them in the PAC? I'm going to point those out to you as well. And again, if you're not familiar with some of these terms, feel free to drop questions in the chat, and we can have somebody get back to you with more information, whether it be myself or one of your consultants. We're going to mention the ebook integration and give you a little refresher there. I'll mention, if you haven't updated recently, we have Mackin via ebook integration now. Mackin is a very popular publisher within the K-12 market. And if you weren't aware, we now have a mobile app that's been in market since the beginning of the year. It's been quite popular, and a lot of new features are added to the experience for the user, whether it be a teacher or a parent or a student. We have a mobile app available now that can be distributed or deployed at either the district level or even at the school level. So we're going to be talking about and touching on all those things today. So let's go ahead and we'll start off over here at the launch page. I mentioned that you have the ability to customize some information on this screen at the top. Now, the customization would be done at the district level, and I don't mean that you have to be a district administrator to do this. What I'm saying is it would be displayed to all users that use the launch page. So here at the top, be sure to remind students they can now sign into the PAC with their Google account. So if you hadn't heard, we do have Google Oauth integration now, which would allow the student to either use their student ID or barcode, as you already know, the easy username and login that they can create themselves, or with the new Google feature, which is available at no additional charge to your schools. It just simply needs to be turned on in the system. Students can link to their Google account. Google does not know anything about their activity. We're simply using their Google account to authenticate them in the PAC. Just like if you go to other popular websites and you get that little box that pops up that says log in with Google or log in with LinkedIn, something like that, we have that API available now to make using the PAC even easier for your students. Across the bottom, you'll see the URLs here that I have shortcutted on the launch page. You can have up to 5 of these on the launch page. So again, that would be displayed to all staff members that come to the launch page, and you can customize and use those however you see fit for the best experience for your staff members. So that covers the launch page information I wanted to mention. The last thing I'll remind you of is the location dropdown. If you have, if you're a multi-site district and you have the launch page on the screen, you simply choose what school you're working with, and it will preset some of the configuration. So when you log into a module or you go to the PAC for that school, it will preset the location information for you in the application, and then for the PAC, it will direct you straight to the school PAC that you have selected. Let's go ahead and go to LS2 staff. I'm going to zoom my screen here just a little bit for you. Now, as a reminder, staff is a tabbed layout. So we have the borrower services. This is all your student and teacher lookup and all the maintenance and the check-ins and check-outs. We have staff services. This is where you can do title and item lookups. You can view the messages. These are the holds requests coming in through the PAC. You can view your active hold shelf. And you can also transfer items between collections or locations. And then lastly, we'll get to list and actions, which is the on-the-fly ad hoc reporting tool. You may not have access to the complete reporting program, LS2 Reports with IBM Cognos, but you would like to be able to conduct searches and create lists of items at the school level or the district level, maybe things for weeding or looking for high value items to put security tags on, things like that. There's lots of options with list and action. So this empowers users who don't have access to the reporting module, which can provide PII and financial data. This gives you a way to still work with title and items in your schools. So you have the ability to still create lists of items to take actions on. So let's come back to the borrower tab. I want to mention one more thing here, and that is your search box at the top. This is going to be for your student and teacher barcode lookup. That starts off as a smart search. Smart search will look for the user ID. It will look at the last name or last name first name, depending on how you format that search. Or it will also search for the alternate ID. Students might use something like their birthday, or maybe high school students could use a driver's license number. So there's an extra way to look them up. But I wanted to remind you that you can then also be more specific. So most times you don't have to worry about changing that. If you're scanning a student ID or looking them up by their name, you don't have to worry about changing this. So that's a really handy feature, is to leave it on smart. So that's a pro tip there. Just typically leave it on smart search and you'll find the student. But you can be more specific. Maybe you want to look by phone number, email address, zip code, alternate ID, home address, or even their date of birth. So you have multiple ways to locate your student or teacher here in the system. So again, I'm going to leave that on the smart search. And then the last thing I'll point out is, until we call up, this is for the new folks, until you call up an account, your only option on the borrower tab is to conduct the check-in, because we have not called up a user to link items to. So I'm going to clear the check-in list for you here. So we're starting fresh. And I just wanted to mention to you, standard check-in is normal. We have in-house use. This is handy for items that maybe were used in the library. A student was reading a book in the library, but they didn't take it with them. This still allows you to track it as a usage statistic. So if a child is in the library, or you have a student in the library and they're looking over a book, in-house use, all right, there we are. So what this now has done is conduct a transaction in the database. I can go back and later run a report on that. So this will be handy for probably your reference materials more often than not. This gives you the ability to run reports on those later. So even if a library item did not leave the library, you still can create a statistical transaction. We also have the special status check-in. This gives you the ability to identify an item as a non-standard check-in. So if a book comes back to the library here, and there's multiple ways you can use this. You can create your own custom statuses. Maybe you need to manually mark items lost or missing, but most likely you're going to be using this for something that's coming back damaged. So you can create these different descriptors in the system. If one's not available to you and you would like it, anybody with administrative access to the iOS can create these special statuses. So you can create a special status that works for your school, give it the description that makes the most sense to you. So I'm going to say that this item coming back is damaged. This is taking the item's value from the cataloging record. So if an item does come back as damaged, you can charge a fee, whether it be the entire cost of the material, or maybe it's coming back and you say, this is going to need repaired and it's going to cost us $2 or $3. You might charge the student $5. And the comment could be something like, torn cover needs repaired. And then you can even manually update the condition. So if this item is searched for in the PAC, Whoever's looking at the item in the pack can even know that this item is, let's say it's in rough shape. Now, if an item does need to go to your repair location, you can check the box that says send to repair location. And then this will take it out of circulation until you have reactivated the item by checking it in with a standard check-in. All right, so this should be moved to, and you can see I have one of my other schools, or you may have a central processing location, or it could be in your school for the repair. So I'll click OK. And you can see now we have charged a fee for this item, and this now needs an action. At any time, maybe you're going through the book drop and you're checking in numerous items, you need to come back to an item. This is another tip for you here. Those little icons are clickable. So you can see this item should be moved to my Adams Middle School for repair. And I can also see that we have charged Jeff. If I click on that, you can see that the account that we charged was Jeff's account. So he was charged $5 for that repair. We also have an override check-in date. So this is handy, maybe unexpected closure due to inclement weather, or you didn't have the library staffed yesterday. So all your book drop items coming in today are from the last 2 days. So we can backdate these check-ins, and we can even leave it on for multiple transactions. And then we'll highlight that override date in red to make it easy for you to see that you are overriding the check-in date. When you're done with the check-in date, we simply cancel, and we're back to standard check-in. And then a moment ago, you saw me clear the check-in list. Maybe you're sharing the workstation with another staff member, or you finished your book drop and you want to clear check-in screen as you proceed with your day. We click clear check-in list, and we're back to a clean check-in screen. All right, let's talk about checkouts and working with student accounts. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to scan a teacher barcode. And by doing so, that gives me the teacher's class set. So this is Gary's homeroom class. The responsible party link, I'm sure many schools are using this. This allows you to link your homeroom teacher to your students, probably in middle school and high school situations. Your elementary school students aren't floating, so it would be the teacher's classroom. You can actually navigate to any of these student accounts by clicking on the student photo. And then there's the responsible party link here that you can go back to that class set. So if I did want to work with Gary's account, I'll click on Gary's account. Now, again, for our new folks, a standard check-in, you can see as I call up the account, it automatically moves the cursor down to the checkout item box. So you don't have to reach for the mouse if you're simply scanning an ID, checking out books, scanning an ID, checking out books, because this works in two different manners. It automatically moves to the checkout box, but I don't even have to reach for the mouse again to move to another account. If I wanted to go back to Jeffrey's account, I can simply scan Jeff's barcode, and I don't have to move the cursor back to the student lookup at the box at the top. I just scan the next ID. The way our system's designed is we do not, or I should say, we do identify a student barcode versus an item barcode. So you're not going to get any error messages. You can just go ahead and scan that next student ID and not have to worry about moving the cursor back and forth. So I'm going to go back to Gary's account because I want to show a couple other features here for checkouts that you will probably see with teachers. So we have the override due date. So you can override the standard due back date for items. So maybe teachers get normally a 7-day or a 14-day checkout, but we need to push that back a few more days. So I can go ahead and override to 9/3, and I can even leave it on for multiple transactions. So again, we're going to highlight in red. I have overridden my due date to September 3rd. When I'm done, I click cancel. We also have stats only transactions. So these are items that are not being tracked by a barcode. So it may be things like the student came in and they took a free paperback, or maybe while in the library they asked for a hall pass, or they could have possibly come in and taken a test. So you can track non-barcoded items. This is used for numerous different scenarios. So anything that you want to keep, again, keep a statistical transaction of that you can go back and run a report on later. Anything you want to keep track of that's not an item to be checked in or out, you can create a category for that and even choose a quantity. So maybe that example again was paperbacks. So maybe Gary took home 2 of the free paperbacks, and I click OK. Again, we didn't conduct the checkout, but we did create a statistical transaction in the database that you can run a report on. Now I called up Gary's account because the other thing I want to do is remind you that you can create multiple holds. Oops. So in this example, maybe Gary needs multiple copies of Romeo and Juliet for his class to read out loud. I can either scan the barcode of one of the items he's going to place on hold, or we could do a title and item lookup by simply typing in the title of the item. Again, this is a smart search. So I'll conduct a search for Romeo and Juliet. I'm going to limit to my school. There we are. And there are the Romeo and Juliet books that I have access to. So once you've selected the item, you can choose the first available, a location-specific item, a barcode-specific item, or you can request multiple copies. So maybe Gary needs 10 copies for his class. All right, Gary is at his max. So if you're presented with a screen like this, if you have override capability, you can simply click OK, or you may need to put in the override password. So the hold was successfully placed. You can see Gary now has 38 holds pending, and we have multiple copies of Romeo and Juliet selected. Now let's go ahead and move back to a student account. You go look up Christine's account. And I wanted to point out Christine's account to you because of our at-a-glance notifications. If you've used the system before, you're familiar with this. For those that are new, what we do is up here in the upper right corner, we give you things that need attention, and we put them right here at the top with brightly colored icons. So she is blocked by the stop sign. You can see she has too many items overdue. She has long overdue items, and you can see the overdues are highlighted in red and have red text. And something else that needs the staff member attention when the student comes in is Christine has an arrived hold. Now these are also all hyperlinked. So if I click on arrived hold, it will take me over to Christine's hold screen. You can see it has switched the button to the left, items overdue. And this will give you a quick warning of items that need attention on the student account. Now, while on Christine's account, I can click on her student type, which is 12th grade, and it will take me over to her information screen. Something to point out here is the student information text box. This text box can be edited by the staff member. So in this example, the note says call her Annie. So that's a note that we put on Christine's account that she likes to be called Annie. This does not show to the student in their online account. So you can put a note here. Maybe it's something a bit more nefarious, like Annie has been caught stealing pencils, or she likes to take computer paper. So you could put a note here again for staff member internal use. It might be something like keeping an eye on a student more closely when they're in the library. And that can be edited or deleted here at the bottom of the screen. The other thing I want to point out here is that you have the ability, if you need to manually block a student, you can manually block a student account too. So maybe they haven't gone over their fines threshold, or they haven't reached a max number of items checked out, but for some reason you feel it's necessary to manually block the account. You can manually block the account here. I save that, and now you can see it has a new warning of a blocked status. So we've manually blocked her account. Something that's new now is the ability to add up to 3 additional or 3 total email addresses. So you'll probably see this used most likely in your elementary or maybe middle schools, where you want to have an email address there to notify a parent or guardian of items that become overdue or lost, or charges that are assessed to the account. So the student would get an email as well as any other emails listed in the account. So you can have up to 3 email addresses now. Now, I want to mention too that all this information, such as the contact info, the email addresses, possibly a mobile phone number, if you're texting, you may be texting overdue or hold notices to your high school kids. All that information can be pulled in automatically, nightly, weekly, monthly, in real time even, depending on your options, via the student information system connection that we offer. If you're not using a connection where your library automatically gets updated from the student records, mention that to administration and they can get in touch with TLC. That is something that we can add and integrate and create very easily, very quickly, and it's a very, very small charge for that. So that way your library is always synchronized to your school student database. We also have the extra information tab. This is a series of what we call custom borrower fields. These have been created by the school, and this can also be populated by the student information system. So maybe who is their guidance counselor or advisor? Are they on a particular curriculum track? Where's their homeroom? What is their class schedule? Things like that. That can be automatically connected to the SIS, or something like internet use policy. You know, this could be set in the library. Did they sign the use policy? Yes or no? So this could do things like allow them to have access to internet terminals, or it could be, did they sign up for the informational flyer or the monthly newsletter? You can create these and use these however you like, and you can also run reports on these. Over here we have the borrower maintenance. So this is when the student account was created, modified, if the barcode was ever changed, things like that. But what I want to point out here is we also keep track of excused losses. So these are items that you have, there's a feature in the system that you can set an item to not checked out or already returned. So if a student says, I never had the item, you could override the item and set it to already returned, or you could say, the student says, I brought that back weeks ago, I'm sure you have it somewhere, and you believe the student, you could set the item to claims returned. So in this example, she has claimed to have returned this item, the Vampire at Venice Beach. So that's what we call an excused loss. So we will keep track of those for you as well. And there's also reports that you can run there. Settings. So here, this is the contact preference for the student. Paper, email, or text messages are all free and built into the system. We don't have many school systems using telephone notification, but if you ever choose to implement a telephone calling system, we do support that feature. But a paper notice, an email, or a text message is built right into the system. It's free of charge. So you can use those for friendly warnings, overdue notices, arrived holds, payments and checkout slips, things like that. We also have loan history and payment history. This is turned on or off at the district level, and then your students can either opt in or opt out. So that is available to you as well. In Annie's example, we do have loan history turned on. She has asked for that to be turned on so we can remind her of items that she's checked out or read in the past. So here's her loan history. And then if it is turned on, the student can also see this in the PAC. Okay, let's switch over to another account. Let's go over to Rosemary's account. Now you can see Rosemary is a little bit better with getting items back. She doesn't have anything overdue or lost, or charges are very minimal here. So let me mention another feature here of the system, and that is if you come across an item that a student would like to check out and it has a status other than available, if you have override privileges or you know the override password, you can actually continue with that transaction. Now I forgot I wanted to show you one more thing before I do that. I want to show you Jackie's account. She has a balance of $57 currently, and that's because she has some lost books here. So the lost book example I want to mention to you right now is this. What's that here? Oh, I don't see the title I was looking for. I apologize, but we can see she has lost items. And the reason I wanted to mention that is if you're working with a student and they come across an item that is supposed to be available because it's on the shelf and you override it, it will actually walk you through. There we go. So the item was previously marked lost and a student was charged. Yeah, there, Tina. Oh, Tina was charged for that item. Okay, so Tina was charged $23. I can waive that fee, and that will override and proceed with the checkout. And then it will take that lost item fee off of Tina's account. So if we go back to Tina, you can see she only owes us $1 now. So Tina has now been refunded her $23. She no longer owes us $24.50. It's just $1.50. So if an item is on the shelf and should be able to be checked out, but for some reason it's got a status of lost or missing or something like that, you can actually override the transaction. And if there is a charge associated with it, it can be dealt with there. There's even a setting that can be configured to automatically process charges. So you don't even have to click a second button that says waive the fee. That can be done user by user, or at the school level, you can create an automatic process so that you don't have to actually deal with the charges. It will be done automatically for you. Another scenario you might come across is an item on the shelf, and for some reason I scanned the barcode and it's not found. If you have the permission to add extra copies, you can actually be taken directly into the fast add form in cataloging. Some of you might have seen this last week with Kim. It's really simple. I scan the ISBN of the book. This happens a lot of times if a barcode's damaged and gets replaced and somebody didn't update it in the system, or maybe it was accidentally removed due to weeding, or a long overdue item has snuck its way back into the library, but the system automatically deleted the old barcode because it was lost for too long of a period. You get the option to come in and very quickly add this item back into the system. So there's a barcode on this. I don't know why it's not in the system, but let's add it back in real quickly. And this is part of my biography collection. And I save it. The item was successfully saved. Now I'm ready to come back into staff and go ahead and proceed with Tina's checkout. And there we go. The Reach of a Chef is now checked out to Tina. So it took me less than 2 minutes, and that was including walking you through each step. So if you have an item that manages to show up at the checkout desk, it has a barcode on it, but it's not found in the system, you can quickly add it back in less than 60 seconds. All right. So that covers the check-ins and the checkouts, dealing with some fees and fines. If you did want to deal with fees and fines and take payments, we can come to the payment screen, and you do get the option to work with credits, refund credits, or take payments. It's really simple, very self-explanatory. So maybe Tina comes in with $1 today and pays it with cash. We don't need a receipt. And now she only owes us 50 cents, and the item has been paid, and it will show up here in her payment history. So here is the $1 payment. I'm going to pause here, Rhea, for questions about that, since we do have a lot of new folks, covering the basics on check-ins, checkouts, and holds, and ask if there's any questions before we take a look at titles and item lookup.
Yeah, sure thing, Philip. We did get a couple of questions that have come in so far. We'll go through those, and if anyone has any more, please go ahead and add those into the questions panel. The first question has come up in regards to charging students related to damaged items. So is that a default setting, or excuse me, for not charging students? So is that a default setting that all damaged items are checked in without a fine? Can the school go in and set that up? So instead of doing it on an individual basis, can they do a global setting to make sure nothing is charged?
There is a setting that you can choose what happens with fees when a check-in, that it can be handled automatically. It could either be waived or refunded. So there is a setting for that. The ability to simply not address or have a charge, you could create a damage status that does not have a charge associated with it. So that would be another option. That may be a better handled by support, though. Off the top of my head, I have two, I hate to say the word workarounds, but the two thoughts I have are more of a workaround than a default of not charging or always charging the same amount. So that might be best handled with a support question. I'm sure you'll get a response really quickly from our schools team about that. So I don't want to give misinformation, but I can think of two workarounds, but the best option would probably be to get 100% answer, would be to submit a support ticket.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And then we did get one other question in that section having to do with loan history and whether or not that's an opt-in setting. So does it default to being turned off unless the student decides to opt in?
Yes, most school districts will have it. Actually, a lot of school districts just completely disable it in the system. But if you would like the option for students to be able to opt in, yes, the default is if it is enabled, it is an opt-in. And then the follow-up to that is if a student then chooses to turn it off or district changes policy and they turn it off in the system, all that information is wiped clean. We do not store it, and it is not recovered if a student decides to opt out for a year and then next year they opt back in. They will not see their old items. So once that is turned off, either at the student level or at the system level, that item information is wiped clean.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. That is all the questions so far. If you're watching along and you think of something that had to do with this first section, please go ahead and add it. We'll just circle back around to it at the end. But otherwise, Philip, I think you're good to go
Yep.
ahead with the next part.
Now I'll go ahead and point out one other feature there, and that's the timeout. So if you wander away from the workstation for more than a few seconds, the system will time out automatically. While we were chatting, it did that. I have my timeout set very short, just about 30 seconds. And you can set that in 15-second intervals up to, I believe, 15 minutes. So you can choose, and that's at the workstation. So, you know, each teacher, librarian, each faculty member can have their own personalized setting depending on where the computer is. If it's somewhere where students are walking past all the time, you might want a shorter timeout. If it's back in your office or back in tech services or something away from students, you could set that to a longer timeout so your screen stays awake for a longer period of time. I'm going to go through staff services a bit more quickly here. There's a little bit less to see, and we've already used 30 minutes already. So that was a bit of a surprise to me there when I checked the time. Titles and items. This is what it sounds like. This is where you look up titles and items. Here you can see I looked up a title. You can look it up by the ISBN or the the title keyword using Smart Search. If you want more specific searching, we can look at a subject or a publisher or an ISSN or your local call number, GPO, SUDOC numbers, et cetera. You have a lot of different ways to search for items. So if you call up a title, what we can do here is click on the item and we'll see the status of the item. We have the option to renew it for the student here. We can look at the borrower, previous borrower. So this isn't item history. This isn't the student checkout history. So if student checkouts are turned off, the history is turned off, you can still go back and see the last 1, 2, or 3 students to have the item. So if you do come across an item on the shelves that are damaged, you can come back and see the last students to have the item. So that is history on the item itself, and it goes up to 3. You can also see if an item is in a special status. So maybe it's circulating in a different collection code. You could be temporarily circulating items. You might set up a new book display at the front of the library or have a holiday collection, and this will alert you to let you know that the item is currently circulating in a holdings code different than its originally cataloged holdings code. You will also, if you have permission to do so, you can do some basic editing here. You can even add or remove copies, again, based on permissions. So that's kind of like lightweight cataloging. Messages, this corresponds to the envelope. This is your pull list, and you can even group these by collection. So this is a handy tip for you. If you're working with holds requests coming in from the PAC, you can group them by collection. So if you decide to print this list, you're not bouncing around the library inefficiently. You can group them by the collection. So you can see we have 37 items here in nonfiction, and then we have items in our special collection, a couple items in our fiction collection. So this will let you more efficiently move through. Now you can also click to sort. So I can sort by title, author, item ID, etc. And one thing I did forget to mention on the borrower screen here is that this is a smart grid or flex grid. So I reminded myself on the other screen a moment ago, I can right click and you have the option to choose what information is displayed here for you. So you can personalize this to the way you work with your students. You can choose what information is displayed and even the order that it's displayed, and also rearrange the columns. So that's a pro tip there. Some folks may not realize if you haven't clicked on these that you can move them around, you can reorder them, and then you can even choose what information displays. And then on our staff screen, again, we have the option to sort by different fields, or we can limit to just canceled holds too. And again, I can sort those by these column headings. Now we also have the holds shelf. This is the arrived holds. So these are items that should be ready to be picked up by students. We have a couple options here. We can cancel the hold. We can view the hold queue to see other students waiting for the items. You even have some options such as changing their priority, changing their pickup location, or even moving them around the holds queue. You can also alert the student again, so you can resend the notice. And again, we can rearrange these by clicking these columns and even rearrange the columns if we like. And then we have item transfers. You may not move items between schools too often. If you are, you can actually change the items from collection and school. So you can transfer items, maybe you're lending items to a different school. You can choose assign to a new location and collection. Maybe we're going to assign them to a new collection, and then we'll let the school that receives the items choose the holdings code. We also have the option to simply change the holdings code. So maybe I want to move items into a particular collection, maybe my display collection. So if I have a special display collection, this is handy because this is reflected in the PAC also. So if a student looks up a book in the PAC and they see that it's in the display collection or maybe in the holiday collection, they'll know to go to a special location in the library. That way they're not browsing through the standard stacks looking for an item. And it's really simple. You simply scan the barcode of the item or items that you want to move. And you can see that I have moved it to a new collection. When I'm ready to return them, I simply choose return to home location and collection and scan my barcode again. And you can see it's come back from this collection back to this collection. So really easy to move items. This is also handy for storage. We have schools that put items in storage. Maybe you're repainting the library, it's summertime and certain items are getting put away. We can use the storage collection to also hide them from the PAC so students aren't looking for items in storage. So that's the staff service tab. And then we'll wrap up this portion with list and actions. List and actions is that on-the-fly reporting tool I mentioned a few minutes ago. So you may not have access to LS2 reports because it contains PII and financial data about the district. So you still need to be able to create list of items to conduct your day-to-day activities. So maybe what we want to do here, let's go ahead and create a new search real quickly. Let's look for items that were added. So I just want to look at my new items that have been added this school year. So let's go back to September 1st. So after September 1st and my location, it will default to your home location that you're logged in at, or you can choose other locations. So let's go ahead and add one more filter, and that's format. And I want to look at all books that have been added this past school year and search. 98 items have been added during this school year. Again, we have a flex grid here, so I can sort the title, or I can right click to choose what's displayed. I can also export these. Maybe I want to use them in Excel, manipulate the data there or print them out. Or I can save this search to use again, and this will be all new books since 9/1/2021. Description, see title. And if you rearrange the columns or the layout, you can save that order. And you can even share this with other staff members that have access to list and actions, or you can keep it private by unchecking. So we'll save that search. Another one that might be handy for you is generating a list of items in a particular value. So let's say anything over $10, and I want to look at my particular collections, or maybe what I want to do instead of collection, what I'd rather do here is I want to look at the format. This is also really handy. So let's look at anything that's a projected material, so any type of videos or DVDs in my location, and search. And I get 198 items. Now this might be something handy because what you want to do is generate a list of items to put security tags on. You can even edit this search when you're done. You can simply go back and say, all right, actually the district has changed their security threshold. It's $25 items we want to put security tags on. Now I only have 100 items. And again, we can select these items to export them, use them outside the system, print them out, save them to a list. You can also save this search like I just mentioned, or we can save the list as a static list so the item list won't change. So if you save a search, you can go back and use it at a later time and it executes the search brand new with the parameters you saved, or I can create a static list. Once you have saved searches or lists, you can come to list and searches and you can browse. A search that can be used again is denoted by a magnifying glass. A static list that will not create new results, it simply displays what you saw last time, is denoted by the piece of paper. So the list is displayed in a static form. It does not re-execute the search. You can also search. So I know I need a report about items with value. If I search value, I get a pop-up, Brahms High School, $9.99 value items and up, and it will run the search for me again. That is list in actions. The last thing we're going to show you here is the self-service mode. So I know that, I know that you're not going to necessarily be able to be in the library all hours of every day. If your district is fortunate enough to have a librarian or a teacher librarian available to each school each day, that's fantastic. If you're not available at all times, maybe you float between schools, or your library stays open during lunchtime, you might want to enable students to check out their own items. What you can do is create a special user called self-check and put this into a self-service mode where a student can walk up, scan their barcode or ID, and then check out a book to themselves. So Tina has checked out a book to herself. Let's check out one more. There we go. And this is really simple. All you need to do is have a scanner out on the table. You don't have to have a mouse or a keyboard connected. You simply, my suggestion is always just use a 3x5 note card to tell a student what to do. It's really simple. Step 1, scan your ID. Step 2, scan your books. Step 3, wait for the screen to clear. And as you see, the screen clears after I've set the self-check user to a tiny little 15-second window, so the student can then just walk away very quickly and check out their items. Now that interface works great for middle school or high school kids, but let's say you are working at the elementary school. We have a visual self-check feature for students, for young students. The student can come to the library and either use a mouse, or if you have a touch screen, choose the name of their teacher. So I'm a student, and Miss Anderson's my teacher, so I can use a mouse or touch the screen to select Miss Anderson. And if I'm Sammy, I touch Sammy's picture, and then I can check out a book. So I was in the grocery store this weekend, and I saw a child helping their mother check out items at the grocery store. I'd imagine probably by about age 7 or 8, maybe even earlier than that, students will be able to use the touchscreen and find their picture and their teacher name and check out books to themselves. So again, you can see the screen clears itself. And if for any reason the student touches the keyboard or refreshes the page, it logs out of self-check and it goes back to the initial login screen. So students can't take a side door into the system and start playing around. So that's the built-in self-check. That's free. If it's not set up in your school, it's really simple. Put in a support ticket. We'll have you up and running in just a few minutes. That concludes LS2 staff. I was just going to spend a very short few minutes on the PAC. So we'll pause here for questions. If you're interested in seeing some items in the PAC, feel free to hang around. There's one more poll question today as well, as a little bit of promotion for some upcoming things with TLC. So we'll pause for questions. And if you are able to stay on and look at the PAC, please, we invite you to do so now.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. And we'll probably go for another 10 minutes on the webinar. And I just wanted to let you know, we do have one question, quick one that came in while you were showing the self-check feature. If your school doesn't have a student barcode, can they search their own name?
In the visual version, yes. So you could still use that at any level. I like to show that for the younger students, but you could most certainly use that for your middle school and high school kids if they don't always have a library ID number. They could go in and just simply search for themselves by looking for their homeroom teacher or whatever responsible party they're linked to. So in any scenario, you should have students linked to typically a homeroom classroom number or maybe a homeroom teacher, so they could go in and look up their homeroom number or their teacher using that on-screen keypad. So yes, they could use that interface as well.
Yeah, perfect. And just in case that was also referring to LS2 staff separate from self-check, yes, you can also do that as well through that smart search.
Yep, you can look them up by their name, their birthday. Again, high school kids may want to use their the barcode off their driver license, which is typically scannable as well.
And there was a follow-up to that if a school doesn't use responsible parties. So if they're on that visual search page, can a student like you went in to find Miss Anderson and clicked on her picture. Is there a way to skip that step? So maybe I'm Sammy, I just want to put in Sammy's name. Can I get to that page as well?
The on-screen keyboard is linked to responsible party functionality.
Okay. We also have a question. How do you keep students from checking out to other people? Some of those nefarious kids may click the wrong name, either accidentally or on purpose. How do we prevent that?
So with that interface, there's not really a mechanism for that, unfortunately. However, what you could do is, and this would require access to LS2 reports or just somebody with access to reports. What you may want to do in that scenario, and I've suggested this to other schools I've worked with in the past, is set up a daily report to run for you to show you all the checkouts that were conducted by the self-check user and have them emailed to you at the end of the day. That way you have an audit trail of those checkouts that can be automatically sent to you at the end of the day, or maybe multiple times throughout the day based on items that were checked out via the self-check interface. So I don't have a way to prevent it from happening, but we do have a way to provide you an audit trail with an automatic report each day of self-check circulations. And if you need any assistance with setting up a scheduled report for that self-check user, just put in a support ticket. It's something that can be done very easily. We can show you how to do it or do it for you.
All right, perfect. That's all the questions so far. We do still have about 8 minutes till the hour. Philip, you think you can do a quick run through of the PAC?
Yep. So I want to point out a couple very high level things here. And a question that we get fairly often is, I have collections that I don't want my students to search, or I want to see all the items that aren't displayed in the student facing catalog. So you can create, what I've done here is I've created a configuration, and for the new folks or as a refresher, you can see here in my URL, I have config equals. Every school can have their own PAC configuration, and then you can have additional configurations. In this example, this is a staff configuration, and it shows me all my new books that were cataloged, or I should say new materials, because here's some tablets. And I also have items showing in my central processing location. So these are items that have been cataloged but not actually distributed to the schools and assigned to a collection code to be circulated yet. So these are items that are cataloged but not displaying at the schools. So you can create PAC configurations that are searchable just by staff members. Most times it's called a staff PAC. So you can create a staff PAC that you can search for items that aren't displayed to students. That way you have a way to hide items. Maybe you don't want your students searching hardware or special resources or particular reference materials, or again, items that have been cataloged but aren't ready to circulate. But staff members can do that. So you can set up a staff PAC. Over here, I'm at Brahms High School. So again, as a reminder, every school can have their own configuration with their own URLs, their own carousels and landing pages, and you can create these yourself in the library. You don't have to be a library.solution administrator to have control over your school's PAC interface. You can be a local PAC administrator where you can change the image, the message at the top, choose what type of advanced searches are available, and then create these carousels and what displays on them. From here, we also have the ability to conduct searches. Again, as mentioned, let's say I'm at Brahms High School and I'm searching for baseball. I get 187 results for baseball. This configuration is defaulted to searching just my school. So most schools will choose to have the PAC limited to the student's home school. So this PAC is just searching at Brahms. Now, you may or may not want to enable the ability to search other schools by the student. So this one right now is locked down to Brahms High School. The student does have the ability to go out to your EBSCO or Britannica. Let me go ahead and get logged in here. And that will segue over. And as mentioned earlier, we do have the Google authentication now, so the student can even sign in with their Google account. There we are, I've signed in as Gary. Let's do that search again for baseball. There we are, and now here's my EBSCO, my Britannica, Gale in Context, World Book, things like that. So we can link out to your third-party resources And I asked you earlier if you were using news feeds or RSS links. If you're not, I want you to know that that's a feature that's free of charge. You can create news feeds so that your students can search online news resources. Most websites, most news sites or online resource websites are available, or I should say compatible with RSS. So it's really easy to set up. Again, you don't have to be a library.solution administrator, just a PAC administrator to configure the RSS filters. And if you need any help with that, again, put in a support ticket. We can walk you through it. It's really simple. You can have as many as you like. I've gone up to nearly 100 different RSS resources before, so you can turn these on or off and have as many as you like. The other thing I want to mention is you may want to create a link. Actually, I'll show it to you here. This is at Brahms High School. I have a shortcut here for the district search. So maybe in my high schools, I do want the students to be able to search other schools. So they could click district search, and this will take them to a different config that says welcome to the school district. And now if Gary searches for baseball, Gary will be searching all schools. So now I'm searching all my schools. Again, this is just based upon a PAC config, and you can have as many of these as you like. And if you need any help with setting these up, configuring them, or making them work the way you want, please let us know. Support will be glad to help you out. So I've now searched all locations. Instead of 187 results, I get 2,400. And then I can even then limit. So if I search and I realize, okay, well, I obviously don't want things from the elementary schools or middle schools, but I do know that, where's that here? Stuyvesant High School is the next high school over. It's pretty close to me. I can search over there instead. So the student can then go in and limit down. They'll even get the availability and that shelf information.
Thanks, Philip. This is all looking really great. I know that's kind of a very quick version of viewing the PAC, but I want to make sure that our folks can get back to their days. We'll go ahead and launch our last poll in just a second. And if anyone does have any questions, do feel free to add those into the questions panel. But our last poll is whether or not you all would like more information. We did go very quickly through this last part. So if you want us to follow up with you, if you have more questions about anything that we saw today, or if you want to expand any of our services, Philip mentioned a couple of add-ons we can do, either some freebies or some upgrades. If you're interested in any of those, please go ahead and hit that yes, please contact me, and someone will be in touch in the next couple of days after the webinar. So we will leave that open for just a minute to give people a chance to respond. I don't see any other questions coming in so far. For the folks still on, I just want to give you a couple of reminders. Be sure to grab those handouts before you leave today. There's some great information in there. Our TLCU conference registration is live, so current customers, if you do want more information or even want some hands-on experience to talk with some of our product owners or support folks, please go ahead and register for TLCU at tlcu.live. And our next webinar will be posted to tlcdelivers.com/webinars. That's also where this recording will be made available starting tomorrow. Philip, any closing thoughts that you wanted to share with the group?
Nope, I was just at the very end there. If you saw me clicking, I just wanted to remind everybody, if you do have the ebook integration, your students can download ebooks right in the PAC, Overdrive, Baker and Taylor, and like I said, now Mac and VIA. And what you didn't see, and for sake of time, I'll just mention it, when the student logs into their online account, they'll see their physical books and their ebooks, and when they expire, checked out side by side. So if you're not using ebook integration, reach out to us. It is an add-on, but it is a resource that your students will love to have available to them in your libraries. And again, thanks everybody for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. And if you have any questions, please let us know or put in a ticket. Oh, Ria, you wanted to mention the LS Community School site.
I do. Thank you for the reminder. And before I mention that, we did get someone saying that one of the handouts won't open. We'll follow up with email and make sure that you get a chance to see those. So don't worry about that. We'll take care of you. Yes, for the LS Community Schools site, we did put a lot of effort into curating a specific site within LS Community just for our schools customers. So this is a great opportunity to come in and see information custom tailored for you, and it is on lscommunity.tlcdelivers.com/schools. You can also get to it from the drop down as well.
Hey, Ria, I think you're going to pass the screen back over to me for 1 second, right?
Yep, we're seeing TLC Go right now.
I'm just going to tease it out. So that here's the mobile app. It has a lot of fantastic features like the ability to view the student barcode, self-check features, as well as scanning a barcode, or an ISBN, I should say. So if the student is out at a friend's house, or maybe they're at Target, Piggly Wiggly, Ivy, wherever you guys shop, they can scan the ISBN on a book and find out if it's in their school library. So this is a new offering from TLC. It's already been deployed at several dozen libraries, and it's received fantastic feedback already. So I just wanted to tease that out before we flip over to the final slide, and that's to remind you to take a look at tlcdelivers.com/webinars to view upcoming webinars and pre-recorded meetings.
And that TLC Go is one of our handouts as well. So be sure to download that if they're opening, and we'll send them out as an email. It sounds like some of them may have some technical difficulties, so we'll get those out to you all.
Thanks again. Ria, anything else?
No, thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon for TLC's Webinar Wednesday, and hopefully you're feeling more confident with your library software and ready to face those first week challenges. So we'll see you back here next time, and in the meantime, happy back to school.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.